I know like COVID impacted the prison system pretty significantly
It was
because,
nasty.
right, one of the major things that I did hear from several people was that, COVID gave an excuse for the prison system to stop visitation.
Yep, it did.
Yep.
Which is a lifeline for a lot of people in prison, and also to put in like a very costly and mendacious virtual visiting system.
They stopped religious, all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
And also, COVID spread in these closed prisons.
Yeah, it didn't do anything to stop it.
Protected and died.
Yeah.
Guards, and they knew they had it.
Yeah.
That came from people that were in there writing me, telling me that they knew the guards. The guards told them, "I know I have it. Now you got it."
Yep.
Jesus.
Yeah, and even in their lockdowns, they were constantly moving people around in those prisons. It's like they were almost trying to make sure everybody got it. It was very insidious from the outside to see what they were doing. It's like, okay, so you're moving people in and out of quarantine to make sure that everybody in the prison gets it, because that's what ended up happening.
Like chickenpox, I guess. If everybody has it, then you won't get it. Or I don't know.
Yeah, which is just not how it works.
Right.
No, of course.
It's not the pox.
No.
Right. Well, it's also, it seems in general that prison is not especially American prison, it's not a good place for any kind of infection control.
It's not safe.
Oh, no.
Because one of the things that kind of, technically prisoners are guaranteed care, medical care.
Technically.
But one of the things that does always kind of take me aback is, the level of health issues that a lot of people develop and once they're released, because that also, is a major factor in preventing good return to society if you're sick.
Our state has a hard time finding healthcare workers for the prisons. I'm on a lot of their feeds, and they're constantly begging for healthcare workers, dentists. They just don't have any in there. Then I asked the people I know in there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there's like a 4-month wait list for the dentist, and my tooth fell out, and it says abscessed." And I'm like, "Oh wow."
Yeah, I always chuckle.
And they don't pay people well either.
People say prisoners get free healthcare, and I'm like, well, that's true, except for it's not free or healthcare.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you actually have to pay?
Yeah.
Is there?
It's
Okay. So
okay. There was when I was in there. It was $3 per visit. Yeah.
See? Back in my time,
yeah, we had to pay $3 per visit when I was in there, and people, it's only $3. Like, yeah, that's a day and a half's wages. Do you pay a day and a half's wages for a copay? Oh, you don't, right? Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, also that in New York, that's where I am, so I'm sort of always referring to that. Of the 19 people who died at this one prison, Rikers,
I see that.
most of them said that they needed medical care, but they had to wait, and so obviously they died before they got it, or they needed to get their medication and they didn't.
I saw that
Which
news.
is also a really common feature that I've seen a lot of. I think that's more of a jail issue than a prison issue.
What's the difference between jail and prison?
Isn't jail the place you go to immediately, and then prison is longer?
Yeah, prison's term. And jail is dead time. There's like nothing to do in jail usually. You need to sit there for your trial and then go back and wait for your next trial and go back and wait till you go to prison. And then prison is a movement. There's more stuff. It's really not that much, but it's more.
Right.
Yeah, jail is basically pre-trial hold, and prison is post-trial time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jail time sucks. I did 2.5 years in a county jail, and it was the worst time because there's just nothing to do there. Nothing.
No time. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of time in county.
Now, when I was in county, they did put juveniles with adults. So I was with all these old people, and they were teaching me how to be a criminal and everything.
Oh, yeah, I was celled up with a juvenile when I was in there.
Taught me how to play pinochle. I never knew anything like that. I never knew how to play a card game. Now I'm like a master.
Yeah. Yep. Join the circuit. Yeah, pinochle becomes second nature when you're locked up for very long.
Can I ask another dumb question? What is pinochle?
It's a card game.
It's like it's interesting. They take, isn't it Jeremy, it's two of the decks or
two pinnacle decks, yeah.
Yeah, and you put these decks together and they're huge, all these, yeah. It's an interesting game. It's a lot of counting numbers and knowing what, it's a lot of work.
You play enough hands of pinochle and you can automatically just see how each one's going to play out because you've just seen it 1,000 times. There's no mystery to it anymore. It's like, that's how this is going to go, and then it does.
Right. And so presumably it's a way of sort of actually staying sane, right? In the sense that you can really engage your brain.
Yes, I've seen people get into fist fights over pinochle games. So
right.
I guess
whatever.
Or some dessert or something. Yeah.
We used to gamble for cakes.
That's what we did.
Yeah, gamble for cakes.
30 cakes in my room at all times.
I ate so much damn cake.
Cake. Yeah.
Is that from the commissary?
No, the kitchen.
It's in our tray, yeah.
Yeah, I came from a really small county. So they made a lady that worked there, she's from Germany. And so she made everything homemade, breads and pasta, pie, cakes. So I was really spoiled when I was in county jail. But as soon as I left, she retired. So no more.
No more cake.
No more cake.
Right, because diabetes is actually pretty common.
Yeah.
It's from the cake.
But I was thinking, like, if they did like bakery classes in prison, you could essentially print your own money, right?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, cake is there. Cake, money.
It's not bad currency. It's better than top ramen, which is the standard operating currency.
Right. Well, that's also, learning to bake would actually be an employable skill.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to go, so I want to say goodbye and thank you to our guests.
No worries, Harriet.
I have to go. So
Goodbye.
bye. Thank you so much.
Bye,
Good night.
Harriet. Yes, she usually leaves earlier than us.
Oh.
Yes.
It's a lie. She's just gone to get cake.
Oh,
I don't blame her.
I do have a question. I remembered my question, and my question is that, like, generally, for if you were to do like a successful transition out of prison, how long do you think it would take reasonably for people to prepare before they leave, and what services and needs do you think people have in this area?
I would say nowadays over a year you should start preparing. I tell people you should start preparing the day you get there, but then a lot of them don't like to do that. But I say at least a year before you get out, you should be really hitting the ground, trying to do as much research as you can by how you can, either through your counselor, through family, through friends, through word of mouth, whatever, however you get that information. A lot of people reach out to me. They'll write me letters. So I'll get their JPay and I'll help them within their transition period and help them, give them resources, give them information. Even if they don't come to our program, I still help them. I give my time for that. So I believe a year or more is great for your transition to get your reentry set before you get out. And then when you first get out, it's integrative reentry. You are hitting the ground running. You are, we're getting your bus passes set. We're trying to get clothing for you. We're trying to get food stamps set up. We're trying to get any of your medical set up, any type of DOC requirements we're trying to get done, any type of registration, any type of checking in with your CCO. So the first 30 days is pretty busy for the people when they get out because they're trying to get everything set up. And then after that, I would say about a year to 2 years. And even some people I know 6, 7, 8, 10 years later, they're still transitioning. They're still re-entering. I believe we re-enter through the rest of our lives. It takes that long to really reintegrate back in here and really feel like you're part of the community and to feel like that. So,
yeah, definitely. At least a year before someone hits the gate, they should start planning those things out. And I tell people who get referred to me that if I get them with less than a year to the gate, then I always wish that I would have gotten them on my caseload sooner. And even with prepping a year before they hit the gate. They're still going to go past their release date because everybody does. And really, and what Joshua, everything that Joshua said is true, including the part where we're reintegrating for the rest of our lives. That's very real. Because even 10 years out right now, and I've got a place to live and a job, and I'm by all accounts functioning pretty well. A couple of background checks could collapse this all around me. I'm not actually really part of society. I mean, yeah. I participate as best I can, but that rug can get yanked out from under me at any moment, and I know that. Now, luckily, I've got really good family support, so I'm not just gonna, go homeless and hungry. They would help me. They would take care of me. But there's no real place for me here. That's not. I'm always scrambling to find my little spot, but I know there actually really isn't one.
That's a heavy psychic burden.
For real.
It's true. Yeah, touched on that, Jeremy, and I feel the exact same way. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
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 I feel like that could be a whole other conversation in itself. But yeah, I think that's probably one of the most important. One of the things that I've always said about policy is I've always said, like, if somebody has served their time, that they shouldn't be punished for it, right? And we have a society that, unfortunately, like you said, you end up carrying a lifelong burden.
Yeah. We kind of have this mentality that we always sort of need a boogeyman. It's this weird thing that we just kind of have to have. And I think in general, people have to have a boogeyman so that they don't have to look at their own stuff, because that's even scarier. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so having an external boogeyman is really important for people. And
yeah. Displacement, right?
Yeah. And it's like, like back in the 80s, the absolute worst thing anybody could be, the most detestable thing you could be, was a drug dealer. And so people had a caricature of drug dealers. And then in around like 93, when registration laws started getting passed, the absolute worst possible thing you could ever be is a sex offender. And then at some point we kind of transitioned into the worst thing you can be is a terrorist. Yeah. But we always need a boogeyman.
Yeah.
Well, I think we always need a boogeyman because ultimately society generally doesn't really care to solve problems in society.
Right.
So that boogeyman just kind of functions as a displacement function for that. But ultimately, yeah, it's that's one of the major struggles that a lot of people that I've come across in drug treatment have is that transition period, and and what greater society can do to help ease that process, I think is, because from what I hear from you guys, from what I hear from everyone else that has gone through that experience, it's usually you guys doing all the work.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, America kind of,
and greater society just kind of being like, oh, like this is none of our business.
Right. America is kind of uniquely poised to not deal with societal problems, because dealing with societal problems would mean admitting we're not perfect, and that's just not something that our collective conscience does. American exceptionalism really prevents us from actually tackling real social problems, because it requires us to admit that we're not as awesome as we thought, and we're not prepared to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
But though there's money to it, there's that part to it. There's this, and the voting and the people, and it's a dynamic.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty toxic.
It is. It's an ugly cycle.
It's an ugly cycle.
Well, I mean, it's ultimately an ugly cycle because we have an issue where things are getting a lot worse, not better. One of the things, I mean, the huge, we're going to talk gender, the huge explosion in like women in women's prisons.
Mm-hmm.
Right. In terms of number And I know that, there are some gender transition issues that
Oh
can,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I know neither one of you, do you guys work with women as well?
I
Yeah.
work with I work with our female facility. We
Okay.
take we're the only program in the state of Washington that will take trans people. So we take trans male to female and female to male, as well as we take anybody LGBTQ plus, as well as our leadership and board is all LGBTQ plus. So yeah, we work with Purdy. I work with other counselors and people inside there. So
I've got people on my caseload in the women's facilities as well.
Okay. Could you talk to like maybe about some of the issues that women face in reentry that is different from maybe slightly different from men?
I've noticed just with the program that I have here and watching and case working with these the people that come out, I noticed that the female to male trans people that come out, they have a huge support system, the biggest support system that I've ever seen anybody have in regards to being in reentry. It's usually the people coming from Purdy. They have a huge support system within that facility. Purdy runs differently than any male facility in the state. They're funded differently. They get a whole lot of different resources, as well as they have legislators that go there all the time. So they're constantly getting all the, everything is wonderful at Purdy. So they got all this support, all these resources, all this community support. I have people calling me left and right for this new person that we have coming from Purdy. And they're like, oh, we got all this for them. We got this. Don't worry about that. We got them here. I'm just like, wow. I'm blown away sometimes. I mean, I love it, but it also kind of, I don't know if it kind of worries me because I see the male side, the male population coming from male prisons. It just never happens like that. I've never seen that. So that's the difference. So they have a huge support system. They have, they just got a lot of people that are backing them. And every single one that has come to our program has succeeded and has gone on to college or onto a great career and live within the community now. So that's how I've seen, them come out and be able to transition. So
we handle things differently because we tend to have an assumption that men in prison can't change and that women can.
There it is. Yeah.
So we put the resources where our assumptions are. We assume that women who go to prison had circumstances that got them there, and they made poor decisions based on their circumstances, but they can change. And none of those assumptions we don't make those assumptions about men, even though that's all true for both people.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's not, the process or the ability to change is not a gendered.
Right. Yeah. It's a person thing. People can change.
Yes.
Yeah. Because, I was like I said, I'm really I'm on a lot of the social medias for DOC, and a lot of their posts come from Purdy, and out to one of my friends that works for DOC, and I asked him the question in regards to that. I said, well, why don't you guys do the same things you guys do in Purdy for the male prisons? I was like, the guys could use Christmas presents. The guys could use uplift. The guys could use a New Year's Eve celebration. The guys could use the sisters coming in and hanging out with them for the day. The guys could use this and that. They don't do anything for the guys. They get nothing. The women get, Santa Claus and big old giant reindeer on the yard. Oh, it's all in their pictures. And it just really bothered me. So yeah, a lot of that kind of bothers me sometimes, but right. It is what it, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was just, it's kind of, that's one of the things that I've realized about working in social services is how shortchanged men are. Yeah. In social services. I mean, for all the talk about the patriarchy, patriarchy only works for like successful men and nobody else, right?
The patriarchy still needs a whole bunch of men to be at the bottom of the ladder.
Yeah. Right.
That's how it functions.
Right. And it is kind of, it does, like, on one hand, it is really nice to see that there is, right? Like, things like Purdy, and I'm assuming Purdy is the women's correctional system, right?
Correct.
Is it a specific facility or is it the system for the state?
It's their main institution, and they do have a camp, but that's their main institution that the women are at. It holds minimum, medium, and closed custody.
Okay. Okay. And so it's one of those things where in terms of like potential reform, you see that in that system, but how that is kind of removed and not, given to men.
Absolutely.
It's heartbreaking.
It is because I see the need and it can happen. That's what I don't understand. Why isn't it happening? Why? And like Jeremy said, though, that's how Jeremy said it is why it's happening.
Yeah, we can't even fathom the notion that men in prison like miss their kids.
Yeah.
They still love their wives. We don't fathom those things about men in prison, and just apply some human characteristics to them, which are all true. Like all of those experiences are happening to men as well. Like they miss their wives, they miss their life, they regret losing their job, they wish they could see their kids more. All of that stuff is true for men too.
Yeah, and they cry too.
They cry, yeah. Like it's rough.
It is.
And they feel disconnected from their families at Christmas time. All the same stuff.
Yeah, and they stopped all those Christmas programs they had inside for the guys. It's all gone. They took everything away to the point where they any type of real other than just regular visits. That's all they've got. And right now they're still limited because of COVID. They still keep using COVID as an excuse. I went and visited a friend of mine a couple weekends ago, and they had us all, separated. I could barely talk to them through a mask, and it was just it was tough, but yeah.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense of like this talk of how men are or who they should be or how they should be and toxic masculinity. It's like, well, yeah, if you're going to remove anything that allows men to emote or flourish, then, surprise, surprise, if it becomes a super aggressive space or place because you've denied them that part of their humanity.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
why you need that Will Ferrell dancing movie.
That's right. That's what'll fix it right there. We need Will Ferrell on board.
What do you think, in terms of countering some of like the general colloquial understanding, like what is some of the biggest things that you would want people to understand about, reentry?
That it could happen to anybody. That it could be your best friend, it could be your child, and that support reentry in any way you can. I mean, because it could be your son, it could be your daughter, it could be your cousin, it could be your mother or father. So yeah, and we're human beings, and we're just struggling to try to become the best we can be under the circumstances. So
yeah, and I would encourage people to understand that when somebody releases from prison, they're in your community regardless of how you treat them and regardless of what resources you give them. So if you want to have healthy, productive people in your community, you're going to have to focus on some reentry assistance, because they're releasing whether you demonize them or not. So it's not even the most self-serving person out there has to realize that it's in everybody's best interest to make sure that people have a soft landing and can reintegrate into society, because the alternative is worse for everybody, not just the person who's trying to release.
Right.
People tend to we like to focus on somebody recommitting a crime or reoffending and going back to prison, but for every time that happens, there's a victim at the end of that. So the way we handle people coming out of prison is going to affect all of us, not just the person who's coming out. So we need to make better choices, even if it's just a matter of self-preservation, because the person who's the victim of the next crime, if we don't successfully integrate people into society, the person who's the victim of the next crime doesn't have to be. We can do a better job.
That's right.
Right.
Great points. Is re-entry the sort of official term for this, or is that just a term you used?
That's the term that it seems like everybody has been using the last, I don't know, 5-10 years. They also call it a warm handoff. I've heard it called that. But reentry reentry is about our second chances too. I heard it second chances, but reentry, second chance, all kind of falls under the same umbrella because somebody that is getting a second chance at housing or employment or resources, or even getting out of prison as a second chance. So yeah,
it has a certain sort of visual element to it, because when you said reentry, I was immediately thinking of like all those space capsules that come down from with the NASA, and it's like, you put parachutes on them, you rescue them when they land in the sea, right? I thought reentry is such a good term for sort of describing what you need.
It is kind of like going from like one planet to the other. It seems like in a
the capsule's not as scary.
What are some of the things that that like for any of our listeners who are anticipating, whether it's a friend or a family member or loved one, is leaving prison soon? What advice do you have for them in terms of being supportive?
Just being a listener for sure. Because they need someone to listen to sometimes, especially most of the ones that I've ever talked to. Everybody wants, someone, a shoulder to lean on and someone to support them in any way that they can. So just super support, just being there for them and knowing that you're going to support them once they are released. That is a big thing, knowing that you're going to be there for them. So that kind of stuff.
I think that's one of the most important things. If you've got somebody, a loved one coming out of prison, it's huge to make sure that they know that you are there and that you support them, because most of the time what gets somebody to prison in the first place is carrying a whole bunch of things themselves that they were not able to carry themselves. And then it collapses and goes bad places. You have to let people coming out of prison know that they don't have to carry all that by themselves, because it's too much.
Right, and they're probably now carrying a lot more from the trauma in prison.
They need to be able to say the true things that are in there and not have to handle everything alone.
Yeah.
Are there virtual, whether it's online or whether it's real life, are there like peer-to-peer support groups for reentry
out here?
Just in general, out there and in general.
Like peer-to-peer support or any type of thing like that. We do have, like, for the LGBTQ plus trans people inside, I know that we have a new administrator for that, and she allows those little Zoom calls for her, so she could support them or issues they may have. But I think for the general population, I don't think there's anything available for them to do that unless they have resources themselves. Now, when they get out here, there's King County, Washington has so many resources. We're very blessed to be in this county. We're very blessed to be in this state. So if they're coming to King County, Washington, they have everything. We can find everything for them. I have Jeremy over here that, like he said, they have the clothing bank or they have financial assistance. I send my people to him for all that. So yeah, there's lots of resources. Plus, we have our symposiums quarterly, so that brings out more people that there's more resources that we haven't even heard of. So
yeah, I'm finding people every day that have something that somebody needs. King County is about as good as it's gonna get, probably anywhere really. And even then there's some big gaps, but I encourage like if anybody that's on my caseload has good family support, I do let them know that their families can contact me as well, and I'll work with them to see how things are going, what gaps we might need to fill, even just a lot of times to encourage them that what they're doing is good and that the person that's coming out is going to need that. So I talk to a lot of families, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
While you say that the support system is good, there are still gaps. Do you want to talk about what some of the gaps are, aside from the ones that we've covered already with like housing and employment?
Well, so in King County, if I'm being honest, a lot of the gaps that we have for people who are coming out of prison are gaps that we just have. There are huge discrepancies between how much money somebody can make and how much they need to actually live.
Right.
So that's a huge gap, and that's a gap that we all face out here. There's housing insecurity and food insecurity and all the stuff that we all just have to face in King County. It's just magnified for people who are coming out of prison.
Right, because things like housing and jobs are a lot more fraught.
Yeah.
When
if housing were guaranteed, I wouldn't be looking out my window at people who don't have it every day.
Right.
And they're not coming out of prison. They just couldn't make it.
Right.
It's a hard place to actually make it.
It is.
Yeah.
Which is it's kind of a backhanded thing, because the people that are on my caseload, I kind of encourage them to get a county transfer to come to King County, because there are some release resources here. But at the back end of that, I'm like, also, it's going to be really hard to make it here. So it's like, it's
right. It's
a
because
mixed bag.
King County is fairly expensive, right?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag on that front.
What's the average rent in King County right now?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I think the average rent for a 1-bedroom apartment is in the $1,600 range in King County.
Yes, yeah.
Around there, Josh.
Yeah, I do rental properties too. Yeah, it's about 1,700 median is our for a 1-bedroom. But then if you get in downtown Seattle, oh no, it just shoots up, and
you're not going there. It's not happening.
Yeah, we stay outside the perimeter.
Right. I mean, 1,700, they say that your income should be, rent should be like maximum 30% is, I think.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at a $2,000 rent, that presupposes that somebody's making $6,000 a month, and it's like, okay, well, good luck with that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, even if you make enough money that you could probably afford the rent, you won't qualify for the lease. Like, okay, well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So housing, you would say, is probably one of the core reentry issues.
100%. I send people to Josh all the time. One, because I like what they do down there where he works. And also there's very few other places where I could refer people for housing. My organization has opened up a house in Portland this year, and we're hoping to open up some housing in King County next year, but it's the number one biggest hurdle.
It is.
It's the reason why people stay past their release dates, is because they don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah, we're trying
to. Do you not get released if you don't have a place to go?
Correct.
Yeah, you stay in.
Okay.
Yeah.
That I did not know. I thought they released you regardless of. They're like, you're out. Get out.
If you have a max date, and you hit your max date, then they'll kick you out homeless. But no, most of the people that I deal with don't have that. Most of the people that I deal with have an indeterminate sentence, so they can just stay in there forever.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it sounds kind of like a horror show either way.
Yeah, it is. You're correct.
Right.
Yeah.
That like you're reaching the max date, so like you're gonna get kicked out and end up homeless. But then you could also have an indeterminate where you could end up in prison forever just through the lack of housing.
And I will say the people on my caseload that have been kicked out homeless, they just go back.
Yeah.
Every time.
You say like that's almost 100%.
Yeah, it is 100%.
Yeah, everybody that leaves our program early and thinks they know what they're doing before they need to know what they're doing, they usually end up back, or they end up something's going on. Yeah, and yeah.
Yeah, I've been out 10 years and I still don't have any illusions that I really know what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's been 20.
Well, yeah. That's a interesting point. Like, can you like elucidate a little bit more on what some of the what you see in terms of what people need to know that leaving early ends up being a severe disadvantage
to the program? Yeah, well, if you leave early, if you're in a structured program, a reentry program that's trying to assist you, and you leave early, well, the risk is going to be, reincarceration, homelessness, anything under those umbrellas. So we always try to tell everybody that, yeah, it might be 6 months. You've been here 6 months. You might have a good job. You might have a new car, but you don't pay any bills really other than your car payment and your cell phone bill. You've never, ever had an apartment on your own. You've never done anything on your own. So to stay here, try to figure it out, and then research that kind of stuff before you even get out. And we always tell them to save. We have a huge savings thing that we try to get everybody to at least have $4,000 before they leave our program. That way they have they have a cushion of some sort. That way, if anything was to happen, they at least have something to fall back on. But I always say go for the sky. Have 10, 20, $30,000 in there. But I just so getting out and structured reentry plan is probably not the best thing. So you should have a reentry plan before you get out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it has to be flexible.
Yeah, it does, because things change.
Yeah, and they change without asking, and there's so many things that you can't foresee. It's good to have a plan, and it's good to make that plan fluid, and get input from other people as the plan is fluid.
Is your reentry plan, are you guys like a halfway house in terms of like going from you're saying, because prison always being a very structured environment, right?
Yeah.
Like what kind of structure is present in your reentry programs? That is
in our reentry program, we'll call it a 30-day blackout. It's not a real blackout like at a drug treatment facility. It's more of a blackout to take a deep breath, figure out. Most of the time, people come out, they have a reentry plan. So usually the 30 days, they're already implementing everything inside the reentry plan. So that's their first 30 days, getting everything lined up, getting their medical, getting everything seamlessly put together so that when they're ready to go out and get that job, get ready to go out and go to school or go out and get a trade, they're ready and prepared. So that's what we do for our first 30 days. And then within that first 30 days, we do take them to any essential trip they need to go to. So we take them to any doctor's appointments, any medical, any DOC appointments, any court-ordered appointments. We also take them shopping to get groceries, toiletries, things like that. So that's that first 30 days because obviously you're going to get out, you're not going to have a car. So that's why we do that. And so then after the first 30 days, they're implemented usually into work, school. They got a program while they're with us. They also have case managers. They meet with their case managers twice to one time a week, depending on the person. It's always a case-by-case basis with every person we get here because everybody's different. And so we case manage them. We help them with their finances. We we have a goal tracker where every week we do SMART goals. It's a SMART goal system. So we have a reality of a goal that you can actually, really be able to accomplish. And most of our goals are like 6-month out goals. So, I can watch them attain their goals while they're here. And then, we have 3 phases. We have phase 1, 2, and 3. Phase 1, you have to have $1,000 in your bank savings account to move on to that phase. And then in that phase, you get 1 weekend away. So you get 1 weekend every month to go spend with your family, to go spend with a loved one, go spend with friends, however that is, as long as it's appropriate and approved by DOC. And then after you move to phase 2, you have to have $3,000 or $2,000 to move into phase 2 in your savings. And then in phase 2, we help integrate you more into the transition. Case managers usually more help them at that time looking for possible housing if they're wanting that, or just helping them on whatever it is they may need help on. Depending if it's employment or schooling, or if sometimes it's even personal stuff we'll help them with, like family issues or family problems or concerns, or we'll send them out to Cell Mental Health, who we work with as well. And then phase 3 is obviously our last phase. In that phase, you have to have $5,000 in your savings. You have to have completed all of your SMART goals throughout your other phases, as well as you have to be employing and or going to school. And in that phase, you were pretty much self-sufficient. You're able to come and go as you please. You don't have to sign in and out, and you no longer have to text your case manager. Normally, we have them text when they leave, text when they come back. That's a point-to-point because we want to make sure that they are accountable, and that if any type of any type of somebody was to say something, we would have documentation and pings from their phone that they could check on a satellite. So that's why we have that check-in system like that. But as soon as they're phase 3, they don't have to do a lot. And then eventually they can stay phase 3 for up to 6 more months or up to a year. Some people have stayed 6 years with us. So we don't have we don't have a set time that they have to leave. But we do try to encourage that they do move on because, we want to see them grow in the community and we want to see all their accomplishments put to work in the community because that's what we're here for. We're here to build people and put them in the community so they can be productive members of society and give back, so that's a little gist for him.
Well, so this is kind of like a residential facility.
Correct. Yeah, we have 2 facilities. Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah,
then
I think the key word there is build, right? Like it sounds, like that whole thing that was spoken about earlier. This with the teen camps where they tear people down and supposedly build them up, but the building up part is missing. It sounds really impressive, right? That sounds like a really worked out plan to help someone. Just guide them to build
Absolutely.
to build some kind of life. It sounds really cool, and just the nerd part of me. It also sounds a bit like a video game, like an RPG. Yeah. You've got all these levels that you're trying to get to. Yeah, it's amazing.
But we found that obviously being in prison, we were always given like, oh, if you guys do this, you get this. If you guys do this, you get that. So we found it in our minds when we built the program that would be a great incentive is to give incentives for people to move through our program. So that's what that's for. It's incentives. It's like, the first, phase 1, you get your one weekend out a month. And then phase 2, you get 2 weekends out a month, so it's just incentives and help, give them incentives and also have them on the right track of doing the right thing as well. And they enjoy it. And a lot of the people that leave our program, they come back and they come visit us. They email me, they're just, a lot of them are doing very good in the community, and those that aren't, hopefully I'll have another chance in life and be able to do it over again when they get out. So
have you had to fine tune that? Because I know that like the external goals, do this and you get this can work for some things in certain circumstances, but sometimes they can divorce you from the internal reward that you might get from doing it. Right. So have you ever had to wrestle with we
get hard-headed people that don't want to do stuff, and that, like I said, it's a case-by-case basis. So, each person is individual. Each person has their own past. So we try to work with all of that. When I do my case management, I sit down and I'm like a friend. I'm like, an old friend that just wants to sit and help you wherever you're at. And sometimes they just, they'll just indulge in everything. They'll tell me everything all the way back from the day they were kids, and it helps to understand who they are as well as help plan their case management throughout the program. So yeah, we get people that come in and say, I ain't doing this, I ain't doing that. I did this in prison and I ain't doing this out here. I'm free. I can do whatever I want. And then we say, well, you signed all these, you signed the whole, application, and we need to have you see this through. We don't want to see you fail, and we don't want to have to, report this to your probation officer. And that's usually what's, they'll snap around and be like, okay, and they're out there doing what they need to do. Usually, as long as you throw that in there. But 9 times out of 10, I really don't get a lot of people like that. I lot of the screening for people coming through. So I do a lot of over the phone interviews. I talk with counselors. I talk with friends and family before I do my acceptance of them into our program. So yeah, so there's a lot that goes into it. But yeah, we do we do change and tweak things here and there to either add a different stipulation, or because we do have rules, they do have to abide by certain rules. Curfews 10 p.m. unless they're working beyond that. So there's certain things that we do have to make sure there is structure within the facilities that these people are housed in and that they live in. So
yeah, it sounds great. It sounds
yeah.
How many people go through your program in a given year, and what's the percentage, of people going through your program versus like the general? Like how many people are released every year, in King County, do you know, and how many percentage of people enter into your program?
Yeah, I think I was at the Capitol the other day, and we're talking about statistics. I believe they were saying like 17,000 a year are released in this area, I believe, but I could be wrong. But people
That's
coming
a lot.
yeah, that is a lot. We do get a lot in this county. Yeah, we get an influx. It's so bad that DOC can't keep up with it. Like they're constantly calling me, telling me that what we can't today because I can't get approval. I was like, so you're going to make it there for another 35 days because you can't get to approving their address, which is approvable. We work with DOC. This is an approved address. Oh yeah, well we just don't have the staff, and so the counselors are calling us. So there's a lot of legalities and loopholes sometimes that unfortunately people fall through, but we try to do our best to make sure that they do get out and that they do come here. But yeah, so we have a huge percentage that come to King County. I think it's the biggest percentage in the whole state that comes to King County. And I think second is Snohomish County and then Pierce County.
And how many people go through your program specifically every year?
I would say about 150 people come through a program within a year. We hold 30 people here at this facility, and we can hold up to 13 or 11 people at the house. So, yeah, a lot of those people don't stay long. That's why we get the 100 and some. A lot of them will come through. They don't want to do the structured program. They figure they know everything, and they just kind of leave. And a lot of those, like I said, do go back to incarceration, unfortunately. But the ones that do stick it out and stay here, they're usually the long haul, usually up to a year.
Okay, that's a fair number. That's a lot of people.
Yes, and we're looking
one organization,
Yeah.
to
looking to purchase another property, but like me and Jeremy were talking about, it is really tough to purchase properties in this area. Because they want to make sure they're so far away from this, so far away from that, and then if there's too many in an area, then you can't have them. That's another thing too. You can't have any transitional homes in one set area in King County, so it's kind of troublesome. But we're looking, and we want to expand because, like we were talking, we're the only program within the state that takes LGBTQ plus people. So
yeah,
right. And I really think, like, the it seems like, the people given, being able to build up savings while they're in there, and having that savings as they transition out seems like a really important part of the success of.
Absolutely. Yeah. Money is a lot, especially if you have a felony, especially, if you're transitioning from prison, especially even if you don't have family support, you got to have that money. That money is going to protect you. That money is going to keep a roof over your head. That money is going to, support you when you need it.
100%. Money's a biggie.
Yeah.
And how much does cake feature in this program?
Predominantly.
At every level of progression, there's some cake.
How much cake do you have?
Oh, I also wanted to that our state gate money was $40 forever. Even I got the $40, which didn't do anything. But now this year they've changed it. It's $300. So that's a nice thing. And plus
they
every year
to 300. Dang,
it's 300, and it'll go up a percentage every year, just like inflation. It never did that before, ever. That's why it stayed 40 since 1980 something. So yeah, this is the first time in history that they've changed it to 300. So
right, and that's statewide for Washington.
Washington State, all offenders releasing after, I think, June, whenever the bill goes into effect, they will all get $300.
Right. I mean, it's not much, but it's definitely much more usable than 40.
They were saying, yeah.
Because like a suit will, a suit and a couple of like necessities will easily run you, well over 300. But I'm glad that there's been an increase. Are there any specific policies in your state that you want people to know about that they should be interested in supporting?
Just there's no policy right now going through for reentry as other than the $300 gate money change, and There was another change. Oh, the other change, I believe. Oh, the other change is the percents that go in. You know, when you get money sent in, they take like 10% out for this, 30% out for that. They can't do that anymore. That's going to end coming June 1st as well, I believe. So that's a great bill that went through the last session. But any new bills, I will be notified by one of the senators that I know. So no, at this time, there's no bills that are going through except for the housing bill that she wants everybody to watch and be a part of, because in that housing bill, there is some information in regards to felons and stuff getting housing. So she wants everybody to support that bill if they can.
And what do you know the name of the bill?
I don't have the bill number on me right now. I don't. But it's the big housing bill that they got going through in regards to Jay Inslee and all of them, the governor. I believe it's a huge bill comprised of Republican, Democrat, as well as the governor. There's
also a UBI pilot program being floated, which I think people should contact their representatives and say, do this.
What is that? Go ahead. What is that one?
Oh, there's a universal basic income pilot program. I was on the steering committee for it. So Inslee mandated, I think in 2017, I think he mandated that by 2027, we were supposed to end poverty in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the proposals was universal basic income. It's going to be a hard sell. I don't know that it's going to go through, but it is getting. I've got the final proposal. I can send it to you.
It's been successful all over the world, hasn't it? I haven't read anything negative, but then that's probably because I'm in some sort of left-wing bubble or something.
No, it works every time it's been tried, but we still have to study it, not ad nauseum to make sure it's going to work this time too. It's like, well,
right, yeah.
Do you know some of the basic, features of the UBI bill that's being floated?
I don't remember the amount off the top of my head. Right now, they're just floating a pilot program that I think is going to be 3,000 people. The challenges with the UBI program is that we had to try to structure it in a way that people wouldn't lose their other benefits by getting the money.
Right. Like Medicaid or
right.
Social.
So that was a challenge. We didn't want it to be a net zero gain for the people who were going to be participating in the pilot program. So that was a big challenge. Yeah, I'll have to go back and read the proposal again. It's been over a week since I looked at it, so I can't remember anything.
I completely empathize with, if you haven't seen it in the last 24 hours, it does not exist.
Does not exist. Yeah. It's one of those things. It's one of those things that's going to get floated very quietly and behind the scenes, so that certain very loud segments of society don't stand up and go, "Not with my tax money, you're not." So it's kind of getting done very, very clandestinely at this point.
Yeah, if there's any links as well for things you want us to include in the show notes, please send them over as well, because that's useful for people if they can click on things and read stuff or anything you think is relevant.
Yeah, I think it's really important for people. We don't tend to do this. We can go on Twitter and look at the drama in the U.S. Congress, but I think it's important for people on the state level to know who their state representatives are, to know what bills are being proposed in their state, and to have a line of communication with the person who's elected to represent them. We don't do that very much on the state level, and I think it's really important that we do. A lot of times it's the quiet senators and the quiet representatives who aren't constantly in front of the camera who are getting things done. At least in my experience in Washington, we've got some really good representation here. It's not like the circus of federal level politics. We actually have some pretty decent representation going on in Washington State, and I think it would be important for people to really know who it is that's representing them, and contact their representatives and let them know, hey, I support this bill.
Right. I think one of the things about politics that's often ignored is that, the most difference you can actually make as a person in politics is with your state and local.
Yeah,
knowing your state and
and
local.
Washington State is really transparent with the bills that are being proposed. Like you can go on the website and you know exactly where they are in their process, exactly what the bill says, exactly what changes have been made. You can get notified to get updates on any bill that you're interested in, and I think it's important for people to do that.
Absolutely, yeah.
I agree. I think it's everything gets so focused on the federal and the presidency when the state and local is probably the most influential and individual.
Yeah, because like for what we do as far as like prison work, there's very little that happens on the federal level that affects what we do at all.
Right, it's all state by state level,
I mean,
especially reentry.
Yeah, I've got like maybe 2 people on my caseload that are in the federal system, and there's very little I can do for them.
Wait, is there a reason for that? Like, since again, like, I'm not familiar with some of the details. So can you talk about why federal prisoners are there's less you can do for them?
Most of the people the people that I have in the federal system are basically doing life in that system. And so there's not a lot I can do for them in terms of reentry because 1, they wouldn't be coming to my state anyway, and 2, they're not releasing. And advocacy for those people gets really difficult with the Bureau of Prisons because it's almost impossible to communicate with the Bureau of Prisons. They do not make that easy. They're not interested in your input. They're not interested in what you have to say. You're not going to influence them. They're going to do whatever they want, and you have no say. And it's very difficult to actually communicate with the Bureau of Prisons.
Yeah.
As opposed to DOC, where I can't go 2 days without getting a call from somebody, from some counselor or some reentry. Yeah, it's like they're pretty open with their communication in Washington DOC, if I'm being honest, especially compared to Bureau of Prisons. I've got a pretty open line of communication with quite a few people in Washington DOC, so I can at least put a bug in somebody's ear that, hey, there's a problem over here. Whether or not they do anything about it, I don't know, but at least I can get them on the phone.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that is a major difference. I guess, most federal prisoners, are they in for life? Is that the majority of the federal prison population?
I don't know. I just know the people that I correspond with, which is, I think I've got 2 right now, but yeah, I don't know the whole demographics for the federal system. I don't imagine that it's full of people who are doing life, but yeah, I don't know those demographics.
Right, but the ones that you are advocating for right now are lifers.
Yeah, and
Gotcha.
They get moved around a lot. I end up losing contact with them. I can track them as far as their movement goes. Like I can get on the website and track where they're actually being sent or being housed, but oftentimes like they get transferred so often, and my letters might catch up to them at some point because the last one I sent was to the last place I knew they were. And it's like, okay, well, hopefully that finds you.
Right.
Whereas with my people in Washington, I can just get on the computer and email them. They've got email service in prison here. So.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. I know some there.
It's not awesome, but it's there.
Right.
It just changed. I lost everything, so I don't know how to get the new one. But yeah.
Oh, sucks. It sucks so bad.
I did that right through the holiday season, so I lost all the people that wanted to email me. I have so many people that I don't know how to get back on there.
Yeah, so it should walk you through it. You'll have to set up a different account with Securus, but the whole system is just terrible. I haven't even figured out how to put a reply button on their email service.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I mean that sounds very like 1988.
Yeah,
not even 1998, right? But that feels very 1988.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And like the Securus, that's the company that's running their email service. They also run the video visitation, and the like their Securus doesn't even support Windows 11. So I keep this old laptop back here so I can actually like video visit with my friend that's still in prison because it's got Windows 10 on it, so I can talk to him. It's like, it's ridiculous.
So most of like the issues with reentry and prison reform would be on the state level rather than federal level.
For
Yeah.
sure. For sure. Yeah.
For our state, yeah.
Yeah, because even somebody on the federal level, if I happen to have a federal prisoner released to King County, I can still find them those resources.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's really important for things to happen at the state level. Because even there, I think it's important for people to be in contact with their representatives because, even though like Josh and I both work for organizations that provide some reentry support, but we're basically doing a job. Both of us are doing a job we shouldn't have to do.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have this job. I'm uniquely qualified for it, but I'm doing something that the state should be doing.
Yep.
Right, or that you should be a state employee.
Yeah,
right?
At least have a union.
Yeah.
Like we're picking up the slack for something that should be done by the state. We should have these services encoded in law. We just should.
Right.
But we don't. So here we are picking up the slack.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my position's fully volunteer. Everything I do is volunteer. I've never been paid for it. All I housing, that's it. So all my tribe pays the rest. I mean, if it wasn't being native, I wouldn't be able to survive. But I'm blessed for that because I can be in this position doing what I'm doing. So that's a good.
That's also actually kind of gutting that, like you're not being paid for all the hard work you're putting in.
That's right. But I am getting paid because the end outcome I know is my community's safer and I help somebody just like myself, hopefully obtain the skills they need to be able to get out in the community and do the right thing. Right.
Right. I just wish, I mean, I think not a lot, but a fair number of people, with similar experiences would love to have a well-paid job doing what you guys are doing as well.
Oh, I love it. At this point, it's just not.
I actually am I'm fortunate that as small as my organization is, we do have some things that other organizations don't have. We've got employees and we have money, and those are rare things in what Josh and I do. So.
Right. Because, that's also probably what kind of limits the scope and the expansion of what you guys are able to do.
100%.
Yeah. It does. It leaves my hands tied a lot, and it's frustrating.
And even the organization that I work for that has some funds, I still, there are things we don't have, like housing. I refer people to Josh all the time. I mean, that's basically my job is to refer my clients to the people who have the things that they need.
Yeah.
I do that. That's what I do. I send people where they need to go to get what they need. So.
Oh, absolutely. Well, if you guys, ever have fundraisers or anything like that, always feel free to send us a link and we'll put it on our Reddit and social media pages.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We always have fundraisers for our organization.
So we'd be more than happy to spread the word.
Our website has a big old donate button right on it.
Yeah. So be sure to send me the links to your organization so we can put them in the show notes. But we're coming up to, almost 2.5 hours at this point.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have any kind of like closing statements or anything that you would really like for people to know or focus on, or what kind of anyone that's interested in doing, getting involved in helping reentry or prison reform, if you have any advice for them.
My advice would be for everybody would be to examine what you think you know, stop believing the myths, and go get the actual information about what's going on. That is just step number one. There's no hurdle that we can get over as long as a whole bunch of myths just keep perpetuating. We need to just slay that beast.
Yeah, and my thing would just be, give second chances. Give everybody a second chance. There's people getting out all the time. You don't know who you're coming in contact with. You don't know who the next person you may meet is. So just give everybody a second chance, because people do deserve a chance to prove themselves and show them that they have actually changed and that they want to change. So, and always, support reentry in your local communities. Get involved with different reentry organizations. Google different organizations and just get involved. Even if you don't have somebody involved in the judicial system or incarceration or anything like that, still get involved. There's always something to do to change. Change someone's life and make it a little better, so that we have better communities, better everything. So that's
right.
Like to leave.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is one of the key areas of, if you want to do something for the community, it's one of the most important and needed areas that people can spend time doing.
Yeah.
Is definitely with, assisting people re-entering.
Absolutely.
It's your community. Participate in it. Yeah.
It's no different from, helping the homeless.
Yeah, you can even make some cake, give cake out.
That's right. Cake. It's important to have cake all around.
Exactly.
Is that like a prized commodity in prison in general, cake?
Yeah, cake is a thing. Cake, ice cream, and bubble gum. I mean, I used to beg guards to give me their bubble gum. I mean, they'd always have packs of it. I'm like, please give me a stick, please, because you can't have bubble gum in there. So bubblegum was the thing.
I used to pay really well for people who could smuggle fresh vegetables out of the kitchen.
Oh, and cheese.
I did actually hear about. I read a short article on how this one guy in prison had a fresh vegetable garden that he was keeping secret and smuggling fresh produce.
Oh my goodness.
It's a premium.
Yeah, apparently, I until listening to him, I never really fully comprehended the value of spinach.
Oh yeah,
yeah. The thing take for vanity, take for granted. It's crazy sometimes.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. I hope this was worth your time, and we really appreciate.
Absolutely,
it's definitely been an education, and. Man, it sounds like there's so much work to do between where the world should be and where it is now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, though. I mean,
yes, I appreciate the chance and the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I don't know if there is anything that you guys really wanted to say that you want to put out there.
Just be there for the person that's going through what they're going through. Just stand beside them and just support them any way you can.
I would also, the last thing I would add is for people to really understand that the prison walls don't separate the good people from the bad people. There are good and bad people on both sides of that wall. That wall is almost meaningless in that context. So,
right.
Just to keep that in mind.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah, that is brilliant.